Why is it important to talk about space tech, and just how dependent is the world on space?
It's not only something related to military agency, it's related to daily life of civil people. We need to train more specialists in space security, in cybersecurity, in space cybersecurity to be more protected on Earth.
Training people, it's really hard because this is a new technology. It took, even for us that are working on the space for 40 years, 3 years to understand, master, implement, and deploy from a low tier level to high tier level at the customer side.
On February 24th, 2002, something happened that changed the way we look at space missions and satellites. Governments and companies, they had to start seeing their satellites as vulnerable entry points rather than just cool tech flying high in the air. That day, acid rain, a malware, hit the VSAT Ka satellite network. And that was a cyber attack actually meant to hit Ukraine, but it spread far over the Ukrainian borders. Actually, more than 6,000 wind turbines in Germany malfunctioned, and thousands of companies across Europe were affected due to this attack. Welcome to Allies in Innovation. I'm Mikkel Svold, and today we'll be talking about how cybersecurity works in space operations and why it's important, why space has become the new front line. With me in the virtual studio, I have Olga Nasibullina, who is the co-founder of the cybersecurity company A42, and also co-founder of TheSign.Media, which is a media outlet dedicated to cybersecurity in space and those topics surrounding that. She's also a NATO trainer in cyber, so I'm very delighted to have you with us. Welcome, Olga.
Hello.
And with me also, I have Augusto Mattos Schaedle, who is the Senior Director and Head of Space R&D at Terma Group. And you also hold a doctor's degree in technology, and you have more than two decades of experience in developing for cyber projects. Welcome to you, Augusto, also.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Just to kind of set the scene, Augusto, why is it important to talk about space tech, and just how dependent is the world on space?
Our primes, especially HP, Thales, and Airbus, they have been changing the way they are deploying requirements due to recent development on cybersecurity attacks that you just mentioned right now. And we at Terma, we are evolving and implementing this cybersecurity by design. We are very much, as a human race, dependent on this technology. I mean, the space technology for communication to navigate towards data, knowing where we are, farming, and many more applications. But this is not enough, just being able to communicate, knowing where we are. The type of technology that we are deploying are growing exponentially, and we have to be secured in exchanging data. A few years ago, use cases of satellites for farming, for example, where we would like to see what is the temperature range on the variation temperature range on the surface of the Earth in order to decrease the amount of water of irrigation, was the primary use of satellites with the payload with camera. Now they are exchanging the use cases for defense in order to find assets that are like small drones or surveillance.
This topic, is it mainly important because of military operations in space, or is it also just part of the critical infrastructure that people basically don't see, Olga?
Yeah, on my opinion, it's related to our daily life. And VSAT hack showed to broader audience that satellite connection, it's not only something related to military agency, it's related to daily life of civil people. And that's why we need to be aware that we have such dependency. We need to train more specialists in space security, in cybersecurity, in space cybersecurity to be more protected on Earth.
I think let's try and talk about that VSAT incident, because that somehow kicked off the understanding of space as a vulnerability for both companies and governments. What happened, and what did people take away from it?
I can share that information that was broadly discussed on the internet. So the intention of this hack was to stop communication of Ukrainian military units on the day, precise day and hours of full invasion. So actually, it was like third-party vulnerability and attacked when through modems of third-party suppliers of VSAT. So for cybersecurity professionals, the lesson was again that even if your network is secure, vendors, contractors, and partners can be weak points. The action points, it's also enforce zero trust principles, and of course audit and segment third-party access to the systems. So this was like main points and learnings for cybersecurity specialists. But it's when we are talking about cybersecurity. Another lessons were for let's say policymakers, because policymakers speaks a lot that space infrastructure couldn't be targeted neither by governments, neither by hackers, because it could bring a lot of risks for civil society. So this is another point to discuss.
Yeah, so basically there's been like an unspoken deal that people wouldn't attack space infrastructure.
I don't know if there was such a deal. I think some people had such understanding.
Yeah, exactly. And what kinds of attacks, Augusto, are we then seeing? And I think we talked just before we turned on the microphones, we talked a little bit about, are they actually different from other cyber attacks that we see? We've also talked with Saman Kajuria from Terma about the cyber threat and the evolving cyber threat. That was mainly concerned with earthbound systems, basically. What is the difference, and what kinds of attacks are we seeing?
The cyber attacks, we have to see for the full life cycle. And there is a few standards that we are looking for towards in Terma. It basically gives you the framework where you can identify, you can deflect and react while you have a cyber attack in your space ecosystem, which goes through the life cycle of test, delivering, while the transportation also it can be a vulnerable asset to be cyber attacked.
So from satellite to Earth and vice versa.
It's actually even before that. So if we step back from a assembly, integration, and testing perspective of the space satellite ecosystem, we start with the flat set testing campaign. So this is under the prime responsibilities to make sure that they have the infrastructure secured. There is no weak point of entrance that will be attacked. The subcontractors that are actually deploying, delivering them subsystems, also they need to be cyber secured. Once they place this together, assemble, they need to ensure that this is secured while the transportation before it will launch. During the launch, there is the operations as well, where in the ground station you have vulnerabilities. So there is so many points of attacks and vectors that can be exploited, that we in Terma, we have this in mind of the ecosystem.
I had a talk with Carsten Mao very recently, who is the head of Air and Space Warfare Center at the Royal Danish Defence College. And he actually I asked him if he had any questions for you guys. And he wanted to ask, how do you protect critical infrastructure now? Uplink stations, cyber attacks, all this. How do you do that right now? Because he was nervous that it's not well enough protected. I don't know, Olga. You're smiling.
No, I think, I think maybe it's more question to Terma, but I can also add what I've heard from European Space Agency. So they have quite strong and developed ecosystem of measures to protect European satellite infrastructure, like SOC, CSOC teams. They monitor cyber attacks 24 hours for 7 days, and it's under huge protection.
And at Terma, what do you then do as a provider? Because you're a link in the chain, right? What do you do to protect?
We are there from the beginning, even before we have deployed the mission of the critical infrastructure, either in communication, satellite testing, or payloads that we deploy for our primes. We do evaluate all the scenarios on the cybersecurity as lifecycle attack that could possibly be a threat. In conjunction with our primes, we deliver them the best solution on the cybersecurity. When we talk about life cycle, it's really important to understand how is this vertical integration looks like in this ecosystem of cyber attacks. Each player has a very important role when we're talking about cybersecurity. And we, as Terma, we deployed many critical infrastructure for secure communication, satellite downlink communication, using our own products like software-defined radio, using our own design products like bus communications, as well when we're talking about simulation and operations on the ground station of the satellite. So all these steps are in discussions with the customer once that we deploy a mission. So we need to understand from the beginning, not after we deliver a solution for them, what will be the full life cycle on the vertical integration, who are the main players, what are the assets that they are working with, which critical infrastructure we are talking about, and then we deploy the best and possible solution for them. And this is a back and forth discussion, and we are tailoring with the budget levels of cybersecurity, because you can be as deep as your pocket goes.
Yeah. And what about, we've seen satellites sent in space for the last couple of decades, and that means there's going to be a lot of legacy systems flying around up there. What can you do to secure the systems that are not built yesterday?
Well, first of all, we see a change in the technology as such with AI, different standards coming from cybersecurity and different sorts of computers, like software-defined radio, software-defined power supply. They are fully digital. So those assets in this instance, they need to be secure on the ground. If you have a legacy satellites that are on space, flying around, exchanging data, you still have a way how to secure this communication in the ground station. And this is how we do it. So we are one step ahead on the technology, making sure on the ground station we have the best technology with the cybersecurity by design, and we ensure that the legacy satellites that having low type of secure communication, they are some sort of secured.
Olga, I want to ask you, because you've trained NATO employees and NATO people and advised government agencies, how prepared are national security structures today against these large-scale cyber attacks against objects in space?
Space cybersecurity education and trainings are becoming more needed. I wouldn't say more popular, no, because it's like not for general audience, but more needed by government and agencies and military agencies. For example, together with my team, with partners, we've hosted hackathon in Madrid dedicated to space cybersecurity. And actually, we've run an exercise dedicated to space cybersecurity. The idea was to put teams in the conditions when they lost connections with all the space infrastructure. They had only some data and codes, and they were obliged to restore connection with the ground systems and with the satellites. So such type of exercise, I think it's necessary to have more and more during like upcoming years to train professionals in space and cybersecurity field, because actually it's something new. You know, we don't have enough cybersecurity professionals on the market, and here we are. We need new type of, let's say, skills and knowledges related to space cybersecurity. We need to be united in space security community to face this challenge and to work together.
What do you see also, drawing from the hackathon that you mentioned, what do you see as the biggest weak points in space infrastructure?
Oh, yeah, I think there are a lot. You know, like if you are looking on even on LinkedIn, what are publishing different type of researchers in space infrastructure, we use a lot of open source technologies. And open source technologies have a lot of vulnerabilities. The main problem is that on the market in general, you don't have a lot of trainers or experts who can build content dedicated to train space cybersecurity professionals. You know, like it's only started and it's only the beginning of this training part in cybersecurity field.
And what about you, Augusto? What do you think? What do you see as the weakest point? Is that also the basically getting enough manpower?
Train people, it's really hard because this is a really a new technology or a new way of thinking. We actually took 3 years to master this secure by design in space about 4 or 5 years ago, where we had to assess what are the standards applied for that, which assets we have to secure by design, how does the vectors are looking like, how do we prepare ourselves to check the vulnerabilities before even we deployed, what is the audits look like when we have to go through, and not only the assets from ourselves as a sub-supplier, but in the full life cycle in this vertical integration that I have mentioned. It took, even for us that are working on the space for 40 years, 3 years to understand, master, implement, and deploy from a low tier level to high tier level at the customer site. So it is very hard to find people that are trained, they understand, and also they are using it on the day to day.
I want to add here also its responsibility of AI use in development of new type of software, of new type of code, because as we know, code developed by AI, it's like packed with possibility to exploit it. So if such code will be used for software developments for space sector, it will be like new type of issues. But also AI could be used for good in space security. So here we are speaking about this ethics and intelligent use of modern technologies.
I think that let those be the last words, and then also, of course, urging our governments and the industries around it to push young people to study more into this field of cybersecurity for space. It's a really interesting topic, but our time is already up. I'm sure we could have spoken on for another hour if we wanted to. Augusto Mattos Schaedle, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be part of this very interesting podcast. Thank you.
And to you also, Olga Nasibullina, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Very happy to speak about this topic. We can make part 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, it's absolutely something that we can dive more into, and it's really interesting also considering the impact that potential threats to space infrastructure can wreak. It's a really big problem if something goes sideways in that sense. Thank you so much, both of you, and to you out there, dear listener, thank you so much for tuning in today. It was a pleasure having you on board. And if you have any questions, please do reach out to us at podcast@terma.com. And that was podcast@terma.com. If you have any questions, if you have anyone you think we should be talking to, send us that email and we'll be looking at it. Also, of course, if you like this episode, do please share it with your friends or colleagues or whoever you think might find this interesting. It really helps us spread the word. And I think especially today, and actually also last time, those 2 points, cybersecurity for space and of course the whole new threat landscape, is just really interesting, and it's something that is worth sharing. So please do help us do that. I think that is it for now. Thank you so much for listening.